Just as it takes a village to grow a child, it takes a community to grow a startup. And we'd love for you to join our community. Welcome to the Mary Poppins of Startups live show. I'm Naily Makangu from Athena Leaders. As a tech consultant and startup advisor, I will answer live the burning questions that you have on your way to Series A+. Over the last few years, we have been working hard to help startups, accelerators, investors, and pretty much anybody who's part of the startup ecosystem. It started with this lovely podcast. Now we're going up a notch. In this episode, we will share with you a snippet of what we are cooking in the background. It's really exciting, and I'm really struggling to contain myself. If you know someone who is looking for startups or scale-up programs, especially focused on tech and product development, send them this video and ask them to subscribe to our channel to avoid missing out. More importantly, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Last year, we launched a tech product mentoring event for tech startups. What we're going to do today in this particular video, we are going behind the scenes, look and share with you some insights of why we did this, our vision for the growth of what we are building. You are going to hear as well the thoughts of the mentors that came on the show, on the mentors that came on during the mentoring event. And also, we are going to share with you some of the feedback that we shared during the sessions. Now, one thing that was very interesting, it was a one-to-one mentoring where we had two mentors that were advising one startup, and the discussion took about 30 minutes. We are first gonna start with a little bit of a teaser, because I know you're wondering, why did you do this? How does it run? Why should we get involved? But let's first give you a bit of a teaser where we talked about dealing with feedback and the impact it has on our startups.
The ability to filter feedback is really important, and it's very hard to advise on because you're going to get so much feedback, and you need to know what's the stuff that's really important to actually the success of the solution, and what's the stuff that's kind of just commentary and just people's preference, and oh, they haven't fully understood it. And if they haven't understood it, it's more a case of, are you presenting it in the right way? So yeah, I agree. I think you're gonna get that feedback, and knowing which bits to take on board when you have those conversations is very important, but very hard to coach.
Yeah, and that's really an art on itself, and it's something that you will develop over time. Because one of the worst things that you can do is change your ideas every single time someone gives you a different feedback. But at the same time, if you're so close to new ideas, you might shoot yourself in the foot. So that's that's something that we're definitely gonna be also helping and be advising during our mentoring session.
That was just one of the snippets, one of the great content that we have for you today, and also as part of this initiative. So let me ask me a question. Have you ever felt like there were a lot of accelerators and a lot of programs for startups out there? Probably. And the next question is that enough at the moment, or are they doing enough to help with the tech and product challenges? The answer is, well, it depends on what you are looking for. Over the last year, we've spoken to a lot of startups. We've approached accelerators, investors, and tried to understand whether the support that startups get from the community was enough. Yes, there's a lot of help out there, but one of the challenges or one of the gaps that we have identified is that there are not many programs that are focused on helping, whether it's a startup or a scale-up, really helping them with understanding their technology and the product development. And that starts even from what is an MVP and what is a prototype and how do we create one, all the way to, yes, we have an idea, we've got seed money and we need to grow and ramp up quickly. How do we do that? How do we structure our teams? How do we make sure that the code that was developed, maybe from an outsourced company or using various engineers here and there, how do we make sure that we have the right base to grow? Or if you are an investor, how do I make sure that I'm actually investing in the right technology, and what was told or what we discovered during the due diligence was actually what is really happening in the company when you look underneath the hood. This is the problem that we would like to tackle. We've heard you. A lot of startup founders out there would really benefit from having a community or a place to go where it's really focused on that aspect of growing the company. A lot of the accelerators that we spoke to also love the ideas of partnering with us so that we can provide that support. I love accelerators. And in fact, we have quite a few that came on our podcast last year and a lot more that we're already talking about bringing on our podcast this year. So it's going to be fantastic in terms of contents that we are providing to our community. The one thing that they all agree with would be that as an accelerator, they spend a lot of time helping, all the way from helping startup understanding their value proposition, how they can market themselves, finding sales channel, pitching, connection with investors, and all of those kind of things. Now, being able to partner with someone that can come and says, hey, we want to take some of the headaches when it comes to helping from the technical aspects of actually building the products. We want to take that headache from you, whether the startup is a technical founder or a non-technical founder, whether they have a CTO in-house or not. We know that our community will really help them through that, and we can work with you so that we give a full, well-rounded support to the startups. And this is really, really what we want to do. And this is why we're starting by doing this 30 minutes, one-to-one session, 30 minutes with our mentors. Again, when we talk to our mentors after the first session, one of the things that we wanted to also understand is why are they mentors? Why are they advisors coming up and working with us, providing that additional support? Let's hear from one of our mentors a few of our mentors in the next video.
Yeah, I agree. I think that definitely helps, having the different perspectives on the call, and you can, and not just attacking it from different angles, but also sometimes that one thing James might have said reminds me, opens up a new avenue that I could go down in terms of questioning the product. I think for me, reason for signing up is it's always inspiring to meet founders and to hear about startup ideas. I think I've heard a lot of pitches in my previous role, and it's amazing that you keep hearing new innovative ideas and meeting really inspiring, highly motivated, highly talented founders who could have an easy life, but they've chosen to try and change the world in some way. But when you hear the initial idea, it always sounds like this is great, it should be a sure thing, but we know that it's not that easy. And so I think that the really enlightening part is trying to figure out where are the real questions to test this solution. Why is it that it sounds great, but what's going to help it actually have an impact in the market and get that reach? What could be the blockers there? And I think it's a bit of a puzzle to try and work that out, what the potential pitfalls could be, and that's where then hopefully you can add that value afterwards.
Do you know what? I totally agree with that. The challenge that they're having,
yeah,
is a big challenge. There's a lot of, you could spend all day doing that. There's a lot of things to unpick and help them work through, which is where we come in, isn't it? Really, and like you say, it is fascinating to speak to people because they're passionate. People who do this are really passionate about what they're doing, which is, it's like watching, don't put this in, it's like watching TV chefs. They're dead passionate about what they do, and it's good to work with passionate people. So
yeah. And I think you need to be, and you need to believe that you've found a really important solution to an important problem. However, that can create the blind spot of, as you say, that's the challenge, is trying to find where the challenge actually is.
And I agree with both James A and James H. You need to be passionate. And what I love about what I'm doing at the moment and putting together this advisory mentoring program is that I also love working with people who are passionate. As James Alcock said, it's really like watching TV chefs. When you watch a TV program about cooking and seeing the passion through their foods. for us working with startups, creating this community and wanting to help startups develop their tech and products in the right way, grow, scale, get customer, and just reach the stars. Really, is a bit like us also enjoying a cooking show. But of course, the only difference is that we want to be there as part of the community and the cooking show. So as we've said before or throughout, this episode is really to give you an insight on what we are doing to really help startups and scale-ups to grow, especially when we focus on the technology and the product development aspects of that. We've started with a 30 minutes one-to-one mentoring sessions that is going to happen every month. We have different teams that are going to come up every month. And one of the things that I can already tell you is that in February, we really want to work with impact startups. So anything related to climate tech, sustainability, whether you are a startup that want to come and join us, that'll be fantastic. And even in our podcast, we are going to really go out in the world and invite a lot of expert accelerators that focus on impact startups, impact investors to come and really help grow the community in that aspect. So if you know anybody, get them to get in touch with me on LinkedIn, and I would love to have them either as a mentee or also on my podcast. Going back on the program though, the first thing, it's out there. And you're probably wondering, 30 minutes, is that enough? Well, we'll answer that in a bit. But first, let me give you a snippet on the other stages of where we are going. The second thing that we want to do is to really build this into a community. We know that the startups that came on the pilot of our session, they love these 30-minute discussions. But the question was like, oh, come on, Naily, this was great, but what's coming next? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm working on it. So what we are doing next is to really expand that and start having our own sessions, kind of like invite only, regular calls for the cohorts that comes to our mentoring sessions. We get to know each other and we start working together once a month, and so that we can help provide the additional support that they have until they can grow, scale, and don't need to continue working with us, but they will still be part of our community where they can meet with amazing tech experts. And number 3, once we get to that space, what we want to do is to launch a face-to-face one-day workshops where we help startups based on their problems, whether we're looking at early stage startups to understand how to build a prototype, what does an MVP mean, how can I plan for this, should I do it in-house, outsourced, or which language do I use? We want to help with that. On the other side, there's also the scale-ups. Yes, we are ready to scale. Who should we be bringing in our company? How do we scale fast? How do we design our roadmap? How do we find, a CTO if we don't have that? Or who should we hire first and scale and grow the company? What about the technology? How can we analyze what we currently have to make sure that it's done well? So yes, there's a lot of work that is going into this. And again, if you are as excited as I am about this, please get in touch. Join the waiting list for all of these initiatives so that we can let you know and you can sign up first. We have a limited number of advisors. I made sure that I interview them myself before they can come on our program. We built a relationship so that we know that we have the right people that will help the startups out there to grow. One of the questions that people have asked a lot is that why do we do only 30 minutes, especially for the first part in terms of them getting to know us and the support that we are providing? First answer is, well, I always tell startups, first start with an MVP, right? And even in this community that we're building, well, I pretty much use my own advice by starting with an MVP. And we thought that a 30-minute session was a great way to help people to get to know us without them having to commit to a long period of time. One thing that was very interesting, though, but I will let you watch the video of our behind-the-scenes discussions, was the type of content and what we actually went through in this 30 minutes. Yes, I spent a lot of time wondering, is that enough or should we do more now? Let's hear from our behind-the-scenes video so that you can really get a sense of what kind of range of things that we've discussed and we managed to get through within the 30 minutes.
30 minutes or about, because we did about 40 minutes, but is that enough to actually dedicate time and really help make a difference in the startup? And I felt like this was kind of, we covered a lot of topics from investors, what they're looking for, pitch deck, what is an MVP, whether product too large, what they need to prioritize. We talked about their teams as well, and there were some ideas on how they are restructuring. And I think we even talked about how they can establish themselves in different countries so that they can attract investors based on that country as well. So I think, again, as the James have already said, it's really exciting for me to be able to offer those opportunities and working with them, and also just starting my morning with so much inspiration and people who are out there doing crazy stuff, but for the greater.
Yes, and as I said, the other Naily said, really excited about working with people that have a lot of passion. And yes, 30 minutes we managed to go through a lot of things. In fact, one of the other things that we also noticed was that although we focus on the technology and the product aspects, naturally in the discussions, our mentees starting looking at different areas as well. So yes, I mean, if you have an idea of, for example, we are thinking in maybe the next year or so, we want to be able to launch another company in other countries, then one of the questions that we were asking is, how are you going to handle localization for your product and whether your product can support that? And in other language, what I've just said, pretty much say, is it going to be easy for you to be able to translate your application in other languages? So that's something that you need to look at. And then we kind of went into that. So yes, there was a lot of things there that touches the technology and the product aspect to really support whether we had CTOs or we had founders, whether they were technical or not. So there was a lot of interesting conversation that went there. If you are a founder watching this, please do put your comments on and your thoughts on what you've heard so far, what you think about this idea, and that's going to be a great boost for us. And any question that you have, and also if there's anything that you really want us to answer or to deal with or to tackle as part of our program, please do let us know. We always listen to our community, and we want to make sure that we provide value for you. One of the things that I also wanted to share based on the behind the scenes video was what mentoring means to our advisors. Now, I'm pretty passionate about what I do. And as I've said, I love working with startup founders. But through this initiative as well and this program, one thing I really want to make sure is that we have the right mentors and the right advisors for the startups. And we really wanted, I really wanted in this episode to allow you to get a bit of a sense of who they are. Of course, we are going to have a lot more mentors and they're going to change as we go through, but I have a lot of work planned with James A and James H over the course of this year. So I really wanted people to get to know them a little bit more, and especially when it comes to this mentoring and advisory and what it actually meant to us, so that you can know us as well as we are also eager to get to know you.
So mentoring to me is helping someone to think through their challenges and probably surface some of their challenges they don't even know they've got yet in a business context, that is, and then helping them to work through that. And I think that as a mentor, what you get out of that is you see people grow. But yeah, it's about getting those people to the mentees that you're working with to step outside of, get the head out of the sand and help them grow as individuals, but also with a mind on how they're going to get their business to where they need it to be.
Yeah, I think for me it's very fulfilling and it's quite rewarding to have a chance to give back. I know when I started my business, there were lots of people who helped me and were there to answer all the really dumb questions that I had, that I thought there's probably a really obvious answer to these. A lot of times there was, sometimes there actually wasn't. And they were, these are things that everybody struggles with, but nobody talks about. So it's nice to be able to pay that forward and to use the experience that we've all gained in the industry. And again, I think just meeting founders is always really inspiring, given their passion. But sometimes being able to highlight issues maybe that they haven't considered, and help them kind of shift their thinking a little bit, just to make sure they're not making errors that we might have seen in the past, can be very helpful as well.
Mentoring is really about helping someone find their way, and just being that friend on the side, when they need some support, whether it's emotional, whether it's advice. But for me, it's really important to also kind of give them the space, and recognize that they are also experts in their own rights. And what we kind of just bring an additional spice in the recipe of them building their company. So sometimes when you work and you have a lot of issues and problems, you can get lost in the details, or you can get lost in the feeling of helplessness or hopelessness. And having a mentor helps you to try to see different angles, ask you different questions, get you to have a sounding board, and that can really help you get unlocked. And of course, as a mentor myself, I do love that, because it helps me to also make myself accountable, to grow and learn, and just being inspired by what the mentees are doing.
Now let's look at the moments that a lot of people were waiting for, especially if you are working for a startups. Some of the key advice that we gave during our sessions. Of course, I'm not going to go through absolutely everything that I've said, but I've picked 3 key things that I saw were happening a lot, or I thought that was actually worth mentioning as well. Before I go in there, are you ready? Right. First thing, if you know any startup founders, whether you're an accelerator, startup founders, or investors, and you think that this is going to be a great program for you, please get in touch with me on LinkedIn. And if you are already watching this from LinkedIn, it's actually clicking on my picture that will come up there somewhere, and send me a message straight away. And once I'm done with this video, definitely get a cake or a drink, and then I will get back in touch with you. Don't forget to share these videos as well, so that you can let other people know. First advice that we've seen. Well, one of the things that were coming back a lot, especially for those that were working in the heavily regulated areas, was that sometimes they knew what they need to do for the regulation before they launch. But the problem was, is there a way to be able to test our software or our startups, our software before we hit launch? So the particular example that we had was a fintech startups. They were getting really very, very ready to launch. And again, for those who have worked with fintech startups, it's a very regulated world, and it can actually be expensive to build, especially when you go for the full version of the product. Unfortunately, by the time we spoke to the startup, they already jumped over an MVP that we were looking at version 1. So one of the key feedback was, even if you've decided to actually build the full thing, well, this is another thing, because I will say build slow, but assuming you're already at that point, do try and test straight away. You're always going to find a lot of issues. And in fact, if you can deploy even if it's a sandbox, and really try to test real transaction as soon as possible, please do that. I found that sometimes people do, they test only areas of the system that they are working on. And it's only when they're getting closer to launch that they will try and integrate and do a full end-to-end testing. Now, if you are working in environments that are very regulated, there's a lot of rules and there's a lot of potential for mistakes, or you are using a lot of integrations with other systems for you to get what you need in terms of the answers, please test it way earlier than you think. I'm a software engineer by trade, and I know the pains of thinking, yes, everything works well when I use my laptop in my system, in my clean environments. But when you start integrating with other solutions as part of whatever you're building, that's where it really hits you, and that would delay a launch. So that's something that we really wanted to emphasize to a lot of the startups that we were speaking to that come from a very regulated environment. The second thing that we've seen, and that one, it was a startup that was focusing on the product. Of course, I'm not going to say too much about what they do, but it's kind of a marketplace, e-commerce/marketplace environment. What is interesting when you are building a marketplace environment is that actually the technology might not be that difficult to build in a sense, but the challenge there was really on the product development and how do you bring your early customers. It's really hard to get a marketplace going, not because of the technology, because at the beginning, especially an MVP for a marketplace, let's face it, you can use a spreadsheet and a lot of people, into an automation to actually test the idea. But the challenge comes with getting people excited and on your marketplace. The more you have a lot of users, the more it grows. But you need different types of users. Who's going to buy, who's going to sell, who's going to provide the service, who's going to use the service. Now, the other challenge that I see with that, and especially that we talked about during the mentoring sessions, were a marketplace that had a lot of different applications. And where they were really, really, stopping themselves from growing faster, I would say, was that they had a lot of different types of users. It's great, and I could really see the application of what they want to do, and I think they are working on something brilliant, and it's a great idea. But if you have to go and try to attract different types of users, whether it's different industries at the same time, and those industries have very little overlap, we will end up burning up. So that is pretty much, this even moves away from just the technology aspect of things. It's pretty much in terms of how much energy, how big is your team, how big is your marketing campaign, and how are you building the product. Might be better to focus maybe on one industry or one avatar or one user, and then as you start growing or you bring more people in your company, that you can look at other things. So that's something I really, really wanted to say, because as entrepreneurs or startup founders, we always feel like if you go for one thing, what about the rest, and we're missing up an opportunity. Yes, but you can chase absolutely everybody and don't catch anybody, or you go chase one person or one group of people. Once you have them, you start reading them back in, and then you can start thinking of how can I apply the learning from the focused area to the other. The third thing that we are also going to say, and this one is something I've said a lot in all of my videos, is building a startup is a bit like growing a child. And again, not just a startup for entrepreneurs and myself, building a company is a bit like having a child. Yes, you have a direction, but don't fall in love with what you want that child to be. You can invest thousands and thousands of pounds in making sure that your child will be the next Serena Williams when she grows. She can be the best tennis player when she's 10, 12, 15. It doesn't mean that by the time she gets to 20, 21, and she decides a career, she might want to continue. She has a life on her own. So you kind of have this mentality of nurturing, but also letting go and seeing a little bit of movement and adapting to the market and to the ideas. That is also very important when you first start testing ideas. For example, one of the startups that we spoke to was trying to build something that's kind of like a bit of a tracking system and providing feedback. Great, again, another really, really great idea that will really work a lot, from universities to providing a little more safety in towns and things like that. The issue that we had, or that the founder identified, was how to make that happen in an MVP. A tracking system requires a lot in terms of cybersecurity and protecting data. And for anybody working in tech, when you start thinking about building a solution that includes cybersecurity and protecting data, all I see is dollar signs. It's going to be expensive. Yet, if you don't have seed or even Series A money, how are you going to afford that? So the idea here is, when you're thinking MVP, don't just be focused on the part where you've put your heart into it. Start listening to as well the users. What is it that they want? If you cannot provide that aspect of tracking, what can you provide in the aspect of the feedback that you will have and do the tracking manually, or just use that as, I get data. I'm not tracking people, or I'm not tracking this information, but if I were tracking, this is the information that I will have, and this is how we display that. So what we decided, we helped them frame a MVP based on what feedback will provide value to organizations based on the data that you can find today. Yes, it's not live, but the data already exists. So using that, they kind of thought about, okay, this is great. Now, how can I go to my clients, to investors, showing them the power of this data, how they can use that as part of their workflows or whatever they wanted to do, and improve the security of the areas. And later on, use a mock-up, Figma, whatever design for the tracking aspect, until you get enough funding. So this is really kind of a bit of a snippet of the kind of things that we looked into. But before I go, this is going to be our last clip as part of this episode. And I wanted to also give a bit of space to the other mentors to share the advice that they have for early stage founders.
Generally, people have ideas. How many times have you been walking down the street and you've seen something and you go, "Oh, I had that idea. I wish I'd done it."
Yeah.
You get to a point where you're just you're not actioning them. So it's basically just getting out there, trying stuff out, finding the quickest way that you can test to see if that idea is going to be commercially viable. I've just given it a try. Talk to people about it, and obviously joining a mentor group can help with that. So you've got people within the group that can offer advice. You can hear people that have been through that process, and also like learn the lessons from how people have not done it correctly, perhaps, and don't fall into those traps. So really joining that mentor group helps you think through things, and also empowers you because you're backed up by like-minded people that can help encourage you to succeed.
Yeah, I agree with everything James said. I think the difference most of the time between the 1% and the 99% is execution. Actually, are you going to go out and try things? And I think before you start trying, the most important things is just talk to people. I know there can be a fear, like if you tell people about your idea, somebody's going to try and steal your idea. But I think from what James said, even the people that like it, if they think, "Oh, that's a good idea," they're probably not going to do it. So I think going out, talking to people, and initially and at every stage, people are not going to get it, and they're going to say they're not going to understand it, which helps you refine it, helps you understand what the potential criticisms or the potential concerns might be. Think that the challenges that you need to overcome, and just having those conversations, even with friends and family at first, or anyone you think could be a potential user. Somebody might come back and offer a new way of approaching it. Somebody might give you a nice phrase that you can use, that you can then adopt when you pitch it the next time, and you can just refine from there. And in time as well, if you go out and you network, you use mentor networks, you use go to the right kind of events where you can talk to people, then you will get those connections where maybe you can find someone who can help with the execution phase, who can help you build the product, who can help you test the market, in order to have a bit more of that validation to take the idea forward. But I think the first step has to be just go out and verbally test it with people.
Yeah, and to add to that, I definitely first emphasize this idea of going out and talking to people and networking. With the mentoring sessions that we are providing gives you the opportunity to actually test your ideas with experts. So that's brilliant. There are a lot of pitch events out there. Even if you are not pitching, I will highly recommend that you find this kind of startups-based event, listen to their pitch, listen to the kind of question that they ask them, because one day you will be on the stage and you will be better prepared. And at the same time, in the room, you will find other techpreneurs that can also help you. The second advice that I will add is, again, MVP. And I know that minimum viable product, if you ask someone, every single person has a different definition of what it is. So we definitely want to help sort that out. But one key thing is, what is the minimum you can do to get people exciting, signing up and trying your ideas? Even if it's a spreadsheet, this is better than trying to think that you have to build a platform first. So that would be my advice for future founders, especially those with a technical background. Hold off coding and try to think about how can you do it even smaller and quicker.
There you have it. Before you go, before you just click on that little button to disconnect completely, 3 different things for you that I would love for you to do. First one, if you love this episode and you're thinking, great, really love this podcast, then do subscribe or just share to someone that you think will love the content as we are building our community. Number 2, if you are a startup founder or a startup founder or a startup team that's thinking, oh my God, I would love to ask a panel of amazing advisors about XYZ, especially when it focuses on the product and the tech development, send them our way. Number 3, if you are an investor and an accelerator and you're thinking, wow, that's going to be something really interesting and we want to find out more, then, well, why don't you reach out? If you do it now, it's going to be one less thing on your to-do list. And believe me, I know what happens when things go on the to-do list. It's lottery when it actually comes out. In the meantime, let's design a happy and productive startup community playground together.